Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast. We're presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro here. Reuben, how you doing?
Doing well. Busy day here at NBC Sports Philadelphia. A lot going on.
Yeah, as we're recording this at like 1 o'clock on Tuesday, Flyers fire their coach. Thursday.
Yeah,
1 o'clock on Thursday. That. Yeah, Flyers fire their coach. It's Phillies opening day.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun when the Eagles are on the back burner a little bit and you watch other people go crazy. Because normally it feels like the Eagles are the team that's like doing a bunch.
90% of the time.
It feels that way.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of check on Slack and just see how hard other people are working for a change.
Yeah. A lot going on. A lot going on in the Eagles world too. Maybe not actively, but there's plenty to talk about.
Always.
Next week, I will be in Palm Beach for the owners' meetings. So a little bit later, we want to kind of go through what I'll be looking for there, what's on the docket. Always a busy few days at the owners' meetings. This year in Palm Beach, last year I think was Orlando. They used to go back and forth between Florida and Arizona, but back-to-back years in Florida.
They never seem to have it in like Grand Forks or,
They pick places they want to be.
Yeah, not a lot of owners' meetings in cold weather sites.
No, yeah, it's certain. And they're always at like this year's at the Breakers in Palm Beach, was a beautiful luxury resort. I can't believe they let me walk in there. I feel like they should spot me when I start to walk in there and just kick me out immediately.
Get Zangaro out of the place.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, security guards tracking me on my way in. I'm also excited. So this time next week, I will be, I think, at Dry Tortugas National Park off the coast of Florida. I'm excited about that.
So now where is that, like off the Gulf Coast?
Yeah. So it's off of, basically I have to take a boat from Key West. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. And it's pretty far from there.
What kind of boat is it, like a ferry?
Ferry. Yeah. I mean, it's a ferry, but it's a company that contracts the work and they're the only ones that can go there, like that you can pay. You could take a private boat out there, but
you're going to have a life vest on for that whole ferry ride, I'm guessing.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
No, I'm pretty good on boats.
You trust the, that's open water right there. That's going to be a lot of waves.
That's fine.
A lot of ocean motion.
I'm good on boats. Yeah. I'm fine on boats.
Okay.
I'm good on planes too. I'm a good traveler.
Yeah, you're good on planes. Dave, you have to understand, when Dave gets on a plane, he's asleep within 30 seconds of hitting his seat.
It's a good skill to have.
Without fail. I'm sitting there like getting my laptop out, like time to do my Eagle stats. And
I don't work on planes.
I look at Dave and he's out.
I don't know how, like, working on planes, you got to have your little T-Rex arms up there because you don't fit in the seats right. I'd rather just take a nap.
Yeah, I'm trying to be productive.
Taking a nap is very productive. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's get to it. We have a bunch, and we have questions a little bit later on. So before we waste too much time, I know if we waste too much time, people will be going, man, you didn't even get to my question. Well, yeah, there's a reason. We're talking about airplane productivity. We haven't talked a ton about the drafts yet. We're about a month away. So I think a good way for us to step into this a little bit. I do this weekly in the lead up to the draft. There's just a mock draft roundup, kind of see what the Eagles are projected to do with their first round pick. Now they obviously have 8 picks and they're going to be moving around the board. That's what Howie does. He has 20 picks over the next 2 years, and they're probably not going to take 20 players. So he'll be moving up and down and all around the board. But right now they sit there with a 32nd pick. Before we even get into options at 32, Rube, as we sit here, a little bit over a month away.
What the chances he picks at 32?
Yeah, or like, what do you think is more likely, a trade up or a trade down?
I think you wrote this. I think with Howie, either is in play.
It is funny. Every year we hear like, yeah, the Eagles are willing to stay, trade up or trade down because that's what they're willing to do every single year.
Yeah, I would guess trade down is more likely.
I would typically think that, but they have so many picks.
Yeah.
And I don't like, if Howie can trade away future picks, they're not even materialized yet.
No, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, anything's possible. He could do both.
Which is kind of like what he did in 2018, the last time the Eagles were in this position. They win the Super Bowl. They have 32. That was when the Ravens called. They wanted to move up and take Lamar Jackson because that is a valuable thing, especially at that position, because you get that 5th-year option. So if there's a quarterback on the board that somebody wants, there's incentive for them to get him in the first round instead of the second round.
Yeah.
Because you get that extra year of team control.
Get that extra year. I'm not sure there'll be a quarterback at 32 that's worth doing that, but we'll see. Somebody might like somebody out of the top 3 guys. And I think Howie just likes flexibility. And the more picks you have, the more flexibility you have. He just likes having options at every step of the way, and he'll have that.
Yeah, so that's what they did in 18. They traded into the second round. Then they traded up again a little bit higher in the second round to get Dallas Goedert.
Which worked out.
Yeah, he's been a really good pick. So I think you're right. I think either of those possibilities is on the table. But I also think there's a chance they stick at 32 and draft. Would you put that less likely or more likely?
I think it's more likely they don't pick at 32.
Mm-hmm.
But I think picking at 32 is more likely than either trading up or trading down.
Okay. So you have the trade scenario splitting percentages.
Yeah. Who knows? trying to predict Howie is a difficult task.
And it's not even predicting Howie. It's predicting Howie in the framework of a draft that we don't know how it's going to fall.
Especially being at 32. Yeah. When you're at 9, it's a lot easier to kind of guess what this scenario is.
Even last year at 22, like we thought like there was probably no chance going into that draft that they could sit there and get Quinyon Mitchell at 22. And then all the offensive players start to come off the board. And I think Howie had to like sit on his hands a little bit to stay put, but they knew they were going to get a player they really liked at 22, and it ends up being Quinyon Mitchell, and that's worked out really well. So it's not even predicting Howie; it's predicting Howie within a draft that no one has any idea really how it's going to go.
Absolutely.
But I do think a trade up scenario makes a lot of sense because of all the picks they have. Because I think there are some players at key positions that would intrigue them that just might not make it to 32. And some of those players will go over here in the mock draft roundup. And I think that's important to remember. Whenever we see a mock draft, you're going to have a lot of people tell you, well, that's not realistic to get that player at 32 or in the second round or third round. What's realistic is tough to figure out because no one thought Quinyon Mitchell would last till 22. No one thought the Eagles would be able to get Nolan Smith at 30. A lot. No one thought Keely Ringo would be there in the fourth round when he was getting Nakobe in the third round. So a lot of weird stuff happens that sometimes I think we get a little carried away with what the consensus board says and forget that things move and teams aren't necessarily thinking the same way.
Every year there's a guy who, and it's not even fair to say he's sliding down the draft because he's not. It's just he was never going to go where everyone expected. And that is perceived as sliding down the draft. He's not. I mean, if he was sliding, it just means that the projections were wrong. Yeah.
And that's not even to knock some of the top mock draft people. They're doing their best and some of them are really plugged in, but it's lying season, right? This information is proprietary and it's sometimes really tough to trust what you're hearing around the draft.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's start in no particular order. I just kind of
Buddy Ryan called Keith Byers a medical reject in 88 and then drafted him 10th overall.
Yeah. Not many people are that open with it. But
that's an extreme example. But
one of the names we've seen come up a few times already is Josh Conerly, offensive tackle from Oregon. I like Conerly. Of the tackles in that range, who, if you're looking at he has to have even not the biggest guy, but a tackle enough frame. He's not super undersized. He's not. I don't think he's necessarily a guard in the NFL. I think he can play tackle, and I think he's got traits worth developing. I think if they're looking for that eventual Lane successor, he would make a lot of sense to me.
He's really young, right? He's
21.
21, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And Lane just said he'd like to play 3 more years. But who knows? I mean, he's an older player. There's injuries. And I think he's a guy that could play guard before.
In the interim, yeah.
In the interim. So there's a lot to like about the pick. And Lane, when we talked to Lane the other day, I mean, he even said that he'd like to have the chance to work with his successor, kind of like Jason Kelsey did. And Fletcher Cox did as well. And BG. They all had that luxury and something that's certainly going to benefit the Eagles in the long run. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And, He's not ready now, certainly to fill in for Lane Johnson, but could see him being the successor one day.
Yeah, and there was a precedent for this kind of pick. In recent history had Cam Jurgens, even Landon Dickerson. He ended up starting a bunch as a rookie, but that wasn't the plan. I mean, they went into that season with Isaac Seumalo and Brandon Brooks as their starters, and then it just so happened that they needed Landon to play, and he played really well, but they were willing to sit him for a year.
Yeah. And there's just something about this team and offensive linemen. I mean, who better to have as your first position coach than a guy that develops Hall of Famers, all pros, Pro Bowlers, for Stout to get his hands on a kid like that from the get-go and be his first coach in the NFL. There's a lot of value to that.
What do you make of the Lane extension, though? Because 3 years under contract, he said he thinks it's possible he plays those 3 years. Does that change this? I think it at least makes it less pressing.
Yeah.
And if Lane plays the next 3 years, this kid's going to have to play, whether it's Conerly or another player, he's probably going to have to play right guard.
Yeah. But best laid plans. I mean, what are the odds Lane is healthy? What are the odds that he even plays that third year? Have we seen? I don't think there's guaranteed money in that third year. So, it's one thing for Lane at, what is he, 34? He'll be 35
in May.
What are the odds he's still playing at this level in that third year? Maybe he can, but it should be nice to have a successor ready to go and be able to play right guard if Lane just keeps hanging in there.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the guy than say, well, Lane, we're fine with Lane for 3 years. Let's not draft him. If you think he's that good, and he'll play. I mean, he will play at some point. So I don't mind. I don't think the contract doesn't change my plans.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
It doesn't, like you said, makes it less pressing.
Yeah. And, offensive line depth is something they need to replenish, whether it's in the first round or not. I mean, you lose Mekhi Becton. Now Tyler Steen gets presumably bumped up, but, you lose Fred Johnson too. You bring in Kendall Lamb on a 1-year deal. It's time to replenish a little bit with the offensive line. And if they don't do it at 32 or in the first round, they're probably going to do it on day 2.
Yeah. And now you have a guy for 4 years who might not play till the 4th year. So now, it's a little different, but they've got to start thinking about it.
Yeah. How about Shemar Stewart? Daniel Jeremiah has him at 32, the edge player from Texas A&M. And I want to mention DJ because it's been a long time now, but he did once work in the Eagles scouting department.
Yes, he did. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. And I mean, what are the odds it's not an offensive lineman or an edge? I mean, I just think it's going to – I think those – I know you're not drafted for need, but if you had bet $1,000 every year since 1990 they were going to take an edge or an offensive lineman, you'd be worth a fortune because that's what they do. And that's what Howie does. And he might do that even if it wasn't for Bryce Huff being a disappointment, BG retiring, and Josh Sweat signing elsewhere. So I think an edge makes a lot of sense. Maybe even, as much sense as a tackle. I think they're going to come out of the first round, I think, with one or the other. So, yeah. Stewart's a guy that people really seem to like down and near the end of the first round.
Yeah, I mean, before that, though, I think DJ has him going later than most folks do.
Could be a trade-up target.
Could be. I'll be honest, I don't love Shemar Stewart as a prospect.
Okay.
I like some of the other edges a little bit more.
He just never had a lot of sacks.
Yeah, but that's not the reason I don't like him. Not that I don't like him. I think they're like he wowed at the combine, big jumper, ran pretty fast. But I look at a guy like Donovan Ezeraku and his like short area quickness and the 3-cone and his like flexibility. And I think that's a really important trait. It's a trait that I really like in edge players. I don't know if Stewart has that necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah. And it seems like most people think he'll be long gone before 32. We'll see if that happens.
I mean, I guess if you're looking for a traits guy over a production, he's that. But are the traits good enough to go there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And like a lack of production, I don't think rules anyone out. We saw the Eagles draft Nolan Smith, who really didn't have very much production. And I think DJ even like compares him to Nolan. They're very different types of players, but compared him to Nolan in that respect, that like, you know, Smith didn't have a ton of production in college, but the Eagles watched him and thought, well, there's a reason for that. He's playing. The reasons are, the reasons are different, but I don't think a lack of production will prevent the Eagles from drafting someone.
That's fair.
What do you think about Malaki Starks, safety from Georgia?
Interesting. There's, obviously they've never taken a safety in the first round, but they'd never had a linebacker make all pro, or I guess Trot did. They never certainly gave a second contract to a running back. So things are changing. Does that mean Howie would, I think it would make a lot of sense. I mean, I'd love to see it. I really would.
He'd be a heck of a piece in the back end of that defense.
Wouldn't he though? I mean, that's the ultimate need pick, but he's a really intriguing player, and I think he's going to be good. And, you're building this young secondary, man. I mean, to have those two corners and him in there, along with Reed, it's pretty intriguing.
It is, and like you mentioned, they've never once drafted a safety in the first round. Every year we talk about, well, they haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round since 1979, and Jerry Robinson's phone starts ringing, and he probably gets annoyed by all the calls he's getting out of UCLA. We always hear that, but they've never drafted a safety. I do think it's very different, though, and I think we've mentioned this before, drafting at 32 versus a top 15 pick. It
was like Nate Allen was like, what, the 35th pick or something? Mm-hmm. So,
and they've drafted safeties in the second round.
A lot of them. Yeah. And Ben Smith became a safety. They drafted him as a corner, tore up his knee in Cleveland in the same game he broke up Bernie Kosar's NFL record consecutive passes without an interception streak, became a safety, and a pretty good one, but was drafted as a corner. Because I know we'll get cards and letters about that. But I think that's kind of like I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see that.
And the value might line up, though, whether it's Starks or Eamon Warry. Like, there are a couple of safeties in that range that would make some sense. Now, I don't think, I think they would be willing to trade up for a defensive lineman. I don't know if they would trade up for a safety. I wonder how that would play in their head. They definitely view it as more of a luxury pick or a luxury position. And also, I think there's a reason, aside from just positional importance, like money factors into when you're drafting too. Like, safeties don't make as much as defensive tackles. So if you have a cheap defensive tackle for 5 years, in a way, it's more valuable than a cheap safety for 5 years.
That's an interesting viewpoint. I mean, yeah, because if you want to sign one on the open market, equivalent value is going to be higher for that interior lineman. I think Howie might trade up, but not too far. I don't think maybe mid-20s for a safety, but I think it's a new era, and I don't think Howie's ruling out anything. So that gives me belief that Starks is a guy. I mean, the Georgia thing certainly doesn't hurt. Well, they have 7 now.
Yeah, they have 7 Georgia players
on defense.
Yeah, we'll go through them.
Let's do it.
Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, Lewis Seen, and now Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah, now by opening day, they might not all be on the roster, but they won't be all on the roster. But it's Howie certainly got a comfort level going to Athens and finding players. So Starks could be the next one.
It is fun. It's just very funny. I love the bit. Keep getting Georgia players.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there haven't really been any misses.
Like some weird starts. Like, there was a period where a lot of these Georgia guys, you're looking at them and going, even around the league, like, I don't know, they're making some weird prospects, but the Eagles have gotten good value out of their guys.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan Davis is the one who's a little hard to kind of pigeonhole exactly what he is and what he's been and what his future is. Certainly had a good postseason.
He did. Yeah. How about Walter Nolen, defensive tackle from Ole Miss? He's a guy who, it seems like opinions are like really varying on Walter Nolen. I don't think it's out of the question that he's there at 32.
Yeah, I think he's a candidate to drop, maybe even out of the first round. What's you're at the combine. What's your take on him?
Yeah, I don't think he'll drop out of the first round. He's got too much pass rush juice. Like production's not crazy, but pretty productive in college. To me, he's like a plug and play 3 tech. He'll get upfield, and he'll stop the run on his way there. He's that kind of player. But like, it kind of feels like a perfect fit for the Eagles when you have Jalen Carter getting all these double teams. It's like Milton was able to feast on getting singled, and Walter Nolen's a guy that you want in that position.
Yeah. No, you can certainly make a case for it. Ricky Patalico's here, and Ricky on opening day, it's like, it's like the fourth grader on the first day of school who just can't keep, he's just so wired. He's just being a pest in every single class. I guess fourth graders really only have one class. They don't like go to English and math and science.
Yeah, they do.
Do they? Fourth graders?
I did. No, when I was in fourth grade, and that was a long time ago.
I think we just had like a fourth grade class. I feel like we just had fourth grade. I had a teacher. I think I had Mrs. Rob, Raube, for fourth grade. And she was our teacher for the day.
Things have changed.
Apparently. Changed for Howie and changed for fourth graders.
Yeah. So when was the first age you started like going to different classes?
I don't remember that specifically, but I'm thinking maybe 6th.
Okay. Did you have like a junior high?
So we had in our town in Teaneck, New Jersey, we had all these elementary schools. Then we had a central 6th grade that everybody went to 6th grade.
Just 6th grade?
Just 6th grade.
That's weird.
And then we went to 2 different junior highs that were 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Oh, so your high school...
Our high school was 10th through 12th.
It's just 3 years in there.
Yeah, 3 years. And although we moved to White Plains after my sophomore year, so I was only there 1 year. But when you were in 9th grade, you would go over to the high school, like because I was on the track team. So you'd actually go over to the high school after school for track.
So would you call yourself like a freshman? Or would you say I'm a 9th grader?
I think like in athletics, you'd be a freshman, but in school, you were a 9th grader.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was done differently.
Yeah, I guess it was. I don't know if they still do it that way. I don't even know if the town's still there.
I don't think the town left.
That town's probably still there. But yeah so anyway, Ricky's got 162 of these games to come, so we're going to be dealing with this. But yeah, I mean, and all these guys are linemen on one way or the other. So
well, there was safety in there.
Safety, you're right. Yeah. My bad.
Right now, of those names we mentioned,
yeah,
most likely, and there's other names. There's a lot of time do a mock draft roundup each week. There are other names that have been mocked to them, will be mocked to them.
Yeah,
but try to get a good mix. Who do you think's the most likely?
I'm going to say Conerly. Most likely. Yeah.
I would go Walter Nolen there.
Okay.
Yeah. Because in general, I think defensive lineman is more likely. Now, there is the thought, like this is a reportedly and considered to be a deep defensive tackle draft, and we've talked about that, but how do you handle that if you're a team? Do you say, get me a good one in the first round, there's going to be a run, or do you say, we'll see what's there in the second round and maybe get one there?
I think that might be how he's playing. Like if he goes Conerly in the first round and then goes defense second round.
Yeah. Darius Alexander is another name that's like intriguing to me. There's a few defensive tackles in that range. Alexander's like he'll be an old rookie, be like 25-year-old rookie, but there's something there, and he would really fit what the Eagles do. He can play inside, outside a little bit. There are definitely some options.
I think of Fireman Danny, 26-year-old rookie. It's not fair.
That's not fair.
It's not fair.
Yeah. That's like saying, he's
No, I know. It's just guilt by association.
Okay.
Or guilt by age. Although Howie has talked about not making that mistake again, drafting older guys.
Well, I think at certain positions it does matter. And look, for Alexander it might matter because he's playing at Toledo, which is not the biggest school, obviously. Well, now the Eagles have hit there. They did it last year, but playing at a smaller school, you question the level of competition. But then when you have like grown man strength going against a guy who's maybe 19.
Yeah.
So at certain positions, I think it does matter. But then that's why like things like the Senior Bowl become so important because now he's facing a high level of competition with other guys who are really well thought of. How does he handle himself there?
Right. Right. But just the fact that he has talked about it, it's clearly something that's important to him.
Yeah. And it's something they always bring up when a player's young.
Right.
You know, think back to a Sidney Jones, like you're drafting a young rookie. You have all this time. Even like Derek Barnett was a young rookie, I believe.
Yeah.
Sometimes drafting young. Keely Ringo.
Keely was 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still just 22.
Yeah.
2 years under his belt. And that stuff does matter.
Good stuff.
All right. You want to talk a little bit? I have no segue here, but we have it on our schedule to talk a little bit about, we have some. Here we go. So Ben Berry says, I think Ben's around my age, maybe a little younger.
Oh.
One class the entire day, didn't move around until middle school, 6th grade.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just advanced. Maybe my teacher was like, not go across the hallway.
Maybe your teacher was just like, get Zangaro out of my room for part of the day.
And Ricky found out that one of his favorite segments is no longer a segment, and that was the chaos outside of our window here.
He is.
I'm very good at locking in, though. Like, I hear Ricky. I'm locked into what we're doing.
Really?
You're not good at that.
I usually am, but I don't know. Ricky's in a class by himself. He's looking over. He knows we're talking about him.
Avoid eye contact. He's going to pop in here.
Now he's now running around the newsroom with a pair of scissors.
That's not good. I'm glad we're in here. Let's lock the door.
162 more games to go.
We wanted to talk a little bit about the NFC East
and
what the other teams in the division have done. The news was out the last time we recorded the pod, but we pretty much had a packed plan for the pod. But the Giants have a new quarterback room. I don't know if you've heard this.
Jameis Winston.
They have another new quarterback room.
Russell Wilson. So they're
first off, what a quarterback room. Right now they have Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito in that quarterback room.
Yeah, it's maybe not.
I know Hard Knocks will never be allowed back in that building again, but gosh,
true.
Do I want a quarterback-centric Hard Knocks.
Yeah, what a group. I just don't think that's how I would build a quarterback room. I've always liked Jameis, but I mean, come on. And I've always liked Russell, but he's clearly not what he used to be. And I know his numbers have been okay. Numbers are okay in Denver. Numbers are okay in Pittsburgh. But I mean, if you're the Giants and you have that third pick, so like you can still draft a quarterback, but
I mean, this better not change their outlook.
But if you're that guy and you're coming into a place like, and they have Super Bowl winning quarterback, maybe a Hall of Famer ahead of you, like that's not an ideal situation. I think you're just asking for trouble. And I think they probably will take, maybe Shedeur at 3, but like he comes in, like you don't think that's like a disaster waiting to happen.
If you have Shedeur in that room too, I don't care. Hard Knocks, break down the door and get in there.
It would be something else. And then you have Tommy DeVito's agent, running
Sean
around.
Stellato.
Yeah.
Really nice guy, by the way.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like a character from The Sopranos.
Yeah,
but I don't know what they're doing. I just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, look, I think these are moves by Joe Shane to try to save his job. And I think when you have general managers acting in that way, it doesn't normally end well.
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances Russell Wilson goes there and makes them a contender? Probably not great. And if he can't do that immediately, he's not going to be there long term.
Yeah.
So, like, what exactly?
Why is he there?
Are we? Yeah, like, what are we doing here? will it make them a better team in 2025? Maybe. Yeah. I think you look at their over under win total number and it's gone up a little bit. I think they're a slightly better team with him, but at what cost?
The idea is to try to be a contender for something. And Russell Wilson does not help you do that.
Yeah. If anything, like he slows your long-term progress because he makes you almost average. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's the worst place to be as a professional sports organization. I've always called it purgatory, where like you're not bad enough to bottom out and get a good pick, and you're just kind of in the middle of the heap. It's not a place you want to be. Like, I think you're better off, and this is not I don't want to get into like the process conversation, but I think in a lot of ways you're better off to bottom out and then just try to rebuild.
I certainly think so. And if you don't sign Russell and you draft a quarterback and you let him play and learn and grow, you're going to have a top 10 pick. And if you have Russell, you probably won't. That's the problem with these older veteran like Matt Ryan and these guys in their 20th year. They're going to be okay. They're good enough to be okay, but where's it going to take you? And like you say, you're going to end up picking in the middle of the draft. You're not going to get an elite player. And if they don't take a quarterback, like because they feel like they have Russell,
then that's malpractice.
That's really bad
at that point.
Yeah. And if they do, then that guy's wondering, why am I behind this 36-year-old, guy who's just a shadow of himself? I mean, he's still okay, but
yeah, but then you end up in a situation where like, okay, the team's 2-4, Russell's playing okay,
and he'll play okay.
And
Neighbors will have a bunch of catches.
And then you're going, all right, well, maybe get the rookie out there. But then you create a weird locker room situation because you're benching the veteran in favor of a rookie who's not going to play as well.
Right.
Probably.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're kind of setting themselves up for not a great situation.
Yeah. Good for the Eagles, though. That's one team they don't have to worry about.
Potentially, yeah. You look at their other moves. They worked in their secondary. They signed Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland. The Holland one, like, I think is a fine signing, but they also had Xavier McKinney in their building 2 years ago and let him walk.
Yeah.
Which is always the one, like, I get why they didn't sign Saquon. I think their mess up with Saquon happened the year before when they basically picked Daniel Jones over him. But I understand why they didn't pay Saquon last year. But they also, like, I think their bigger blunder was letting a 25-year-old safety out of their building, a guy who, like, presumably could have been there when they finally got good.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I don't even know where Daniel Jones is. Who did he sign with?
Oh, he was with Minnesota, right?
Yeah, but he was on their practice squad. I think he was a free agent. He signed somewhere else.
Oh, the Colts. That's right. Yeah.
Come on, Shane. What are you doing? Yeah. I mean, and they just invested in Anthony Richardson, so we'll see what happens there.
Well, that hasn't been the best.
No, he was hurt and probably wasn't ready. But yeah, I mean, is Daniel Jones going to be appreciably better than Anthony Richardson?
No, I don't think they want him to be.
Who's got a higher ceiling?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think they'd probably. We shouldn't be talking about the Colts, but
yeah, you're right.
I think they would like Richardson to be the guy there.
Yeah, I would think so.
But it hasn't gone very well so far.
No. What else did Giants do? Is that it?
Oh, no. I mean, they made some other moves. They re-signed Darius Slayton, which I think is a good move for them. No.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah, some other moves that are kind of lower level, but I think obviously the big move is Russell, but then signing Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland.
Yeah.
Now, Adebo's like a fine corner.
Yeah.
They overpaid for him, but that's what free agency is. You overpay for players who don't deserve it, but they're on the open market and you got to.
Eagles are 17-3 in their last 20 games against the Giants.
It's amazing.
You think they'll sweep them this year?
If they need to.
Yeah. Yeah, that second game could be late after they've locked up number one seed.
Do you like that, by the way? Like backloading the division games? I do too. It makes for a lot of clunkers, but on the off chance that it matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Okay. How about the Commanders?
We're going to have a schedule in a few weeks, by the way. Right? When is that coming out? Late April?
Normally May.
Early May.
Normally,
it's always a fun day.
It is always a fun day.
Right.
Commanders.
Yeah.
They have a quarterback on a rookie contract, so you kind of understand what they're doing. They're paying older veterans. They bring back Zach Ertz. They go out and they trade for Laramie Tunsil. They trade for Deebo Samuel, two guys who are both probably past their primes, but probably will make them maybe not better.
I would say Ertz is probably past his prime as well.
Yeah. A bunch of guys that are past their primes, but and then they go out and they sign Kinlaw, Will Harris, Dietrich Wise. They re-signed Bobby Wagner, Tress Way, Marcus Mariota. So like, it's an old roster.
It really is.
Aside from Jaden Daniels.
You got to get your Tress Way in there.
Their biggest move of the offseason was getting Tress Way back.
Do you have a Tress Way jersey?
I don't. I do love a good lefty punter who's been there for a decade.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work, but at least I understand it.
Yeah, I understand it. I don't like it. I don't think if you have this kid who's such an exciting player, and so you're like, let's bring in all these older guys and just try to win something now. But like in 2 years, what is your roster going to look like? And man, I think you got to understand that, like, to the way the Eagles are right now, like I just don't think that kind of roster construction is the way to challenge them. I think having a young team, young talent is the only way for Washington with that quarterback to really challenge the Eagles.
In a way, I wonder if them getting to the NFC Championship game ahead of schedule has altered the plan. It probably shouldn't, but I understand the temptation of that. This is a franchise that has been hungry for so long to be viable, and they finally get a taste of it. And you have this new ownership and you have new management and you're trying to just like maximize it. And you have all this cap space because you're not paying the quarterback yet.
Right.
I get what they're doing. Don't know if it's going to work out.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm really curious to see what that team looks like next year.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan Allen was their big departure. Jonathan Allen and Diami Brown, Jeremy Chin. So that they lost some good players.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be as good in 25 as they were in 24.
I think that's mostly realistic because they played probably above what you expected
a little bit
last year.
They took some people by surprise, including the Lions.
They did. Look, we'll see what year 2 of Jaden Daniels looks like.
Yeah.
I think he could get better, but there's no guarantee either.
Yeah. And
you could like CJ Stroud's second year was probably not what everyone expected.
Little book on, once there's a book on a guy, if he becomes I think he's really talented, and I think whatever, he's going to be good. But yeah, how much better can he get? Will he keep getting better? Is it going to be a linear thing? I'm not positive.
What do you make of Deebo in that offense?
I just don't know if what's left of Deebo. I don't know how good he is anymore. Certainly trended the wrong way in San Francisco. I mean, at one point he was really one of the most dynamic players in the league, but we just haven't seen that in a while.
And the way they used him in San Francisco, like I wonder how much that took off of his career.
All those carries with his build and everything. And yeah, so ton of touches. It's not a signing I would have made if it was the Deebo of a few years ago. You love that player. But, maybe having this quarterback and just change of scenery, maybe having a coach who has a better sense of how to use them and not overuse them, might, maybe he can kind of get close to where he used to be. We'll see.
And then the Cowboys, they've had kind of a quiet.
That never happens.
Off season. I guess their biggest move was re-signing Oso Digizua. I think it was a 4-year, $84 million contract. Big money for Oso. I like him as a player, obviously an undersized defensive tackle, but he gets after the quarterback. He's had some good games against the Eagles, so they re-signed him. Kevontae Turpin, they re-signed Marquise Bell, Bridgeton, New Jersey product.
7-foot high jumper in high school. Meet a champions winner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They acquired Kenneth Murray. They signed Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders.
They signed Miles Sanders. They seem to want to get Turpin more involved in the offense.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame him.
Yeah, he's one of the most explosive players in the league.
Yeah. I would try to find as many ways as possible to get him the football.
They lost DeMarcus Lawrence, who made some noise on his way out of town.
He sure did.
Jordan Lewis, Rico Dowdle's gone.
Which was interesting. That surprised me. I don't think he's bad.
No, I think they're hoping Javonte Williams can find it again.
Yeah.
I don't think they're expecting much from Miles.
What a career. He's still a young guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
28?
it's not that abnormal of a career for running backs.
True.
It sounds like a weird career, but I don't know if it really is.
He's only 27. Yeah, he averaged what did he average in Carolina per carry? 3.5. 5.0 here, 3.5. Leaving this O-line was worth 1.5 yards per carry for Miles. Without that O-line, he's just a barely average, below average player. He didn't even catch many balls down there. But once upon a time, he was awfully good. But his 2022 season was really, really good up until the Super Bowl. So who do you think's helped themselves the most?
Well, before we get to that, I mean, the big thing with Cowboys is that they just haven't made the move they need to make. They haven't re-signed Micah Parsons. He's going into that 5th-year option year. What are they doing?
That's Jerry. Jerry seems to do that a lot.
It makes no sense. Like,
no, well,
you get it. He's your best player.
He is.
I know he's probably a pain at times because he's so vocal and he's doing the podcast and all that, but he's really good.
You're gonna sign him, so the fact that he's difficult, like if you don't want to sign him, then don't, then
trade him.
He's 25.
If you don't want to sign him, trade him.
Exactly. It's almost like we want to make things difficult for him, but yeah, we're going to eventually sign him.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
Bad management, bad ownership. Which team helped themselves the most? I mean, the Giants might have improved their win-loss record. I don't think they helped themselves in the long term.
Agree. I would say Washington just because at least they have a plan. Like, I don't know what Dallas's plan is. I don't know what the Giants' plan is. I mean, I know what they are, and I don't like them. But, I mean, I
might not agree with the plan. Like,
yeah,
but you see the plan.
At least they have an idea. And if they can get, a couple guys to play, I mean, Tunsil's he's still good. If they can get some of these guys to play like it was 2021, then yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. But I mean, I don't think any of them really significantly closed the gap.
I don't either. And I mean, history tells you the Eagles aren't going to win the division this year. So who's going to win it?
At some point, somebody's got to win 2 in a row.
At some point, yeah. And like the Eagles are, to me, clearly the best team in the division. And like, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were in 2024. I think that'd be really hard to duplicate. Yeah. But I still think they're like clearly the best team in the division.
They might win 11 and win the division. I mean, how crazy is that nobody's won a division back-to-back since 03 and 04? That's crazy. Like, I mean, that's insane. And
the Eagles have been like really good through a lot of this stretch. Like, it's shocking to think back that it hasn't happened.
It really is. Yeah. It's a cool thing, though. It's a cool little streak. So if I had to guess, I would say they'll win it this year. But yeah, history's not on their side.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I want to look ahead to the owners' meetings, and we'll answer a couple of questions.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro here with you. Reuben, I fly down to the owners' meetings on Sunday. It goes Sunday really through Tuesday. They say Wednesday, but normally they're all wrapped up by Tuesday. It's always a fun couple of days because we get to talk to Jeffrey Lurie, we get to talk to Howie Roseman, and we get to talk to Nick Sirianni.
Sounds like fun to me.
It does. Let's start at the top and work our way down. We did hear from Jeffrey Lurie at the Super Bowl, which is kind of like a bonus Jeffrey Lurie session that we don't always get. We've gotten it now, I guess, 2 of the last 3 years, but rare, right? What are some things that we really want to hear from Jeffrey Lurie?
Someday I'll tell the story about the 2 chairs. I don't think we shared that story on the podcast. The 2 chairs at the Superdome, one for Howie and one for Jeffrey. So when we have a quiet moment, we'll share that story. But I mean, he answered a lot of the major stuff. Maybe he'll have more on Nick's future, although he basically said Nick's going to be our coach without obviously he's going to be our coach.
A little weird it hasn't happened yet.
It's a little weird. It is. I was thinking about that too.
Nick Sirianni's going into the final year of his contract, which he's going to have an extension at some point, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, so maybe there's a hang up with terms possible. You would think they've approached him by now. So, we'll see what happens with that. It's my understanding Howie doesn't do that contract. That's an outside attorney or outside company, legal company that does Nick's contract, which I thought was interesting.
Kind of makes sense. So
it does.
You don't have to fit it into the cap.
True. That's true. And just
Howie, stop trying to put void years on this. It doesn't matter.
I also think it could, I don't think it would, but it could have a negative effect on the relationship. It's something that you don't need.
Yeah.
You really don't need that. So I thought that was interesting. But I think that's number one. That's really topic number one. For me, we know he's not going to buy the Celtics.
Yeah. So the NFLPA report card came out and they were really low on travel and treatment of families, which basically comes down to they don't have a daycare for players on home games, which they're one of 3 teams without that. They took some knocks in travel. And this, if they had done this at the end of a Super Bowl season, maybe all the marks are just better because everyone's feeling good. They do it early, I think, during training camp. So, but like some improvement for that stuff could be there. I want to dive deeper into his talking about potentially going to a dome at some point. Sure. I mean, it was a topic in New Orleans, but it wasn't something we really got to go into very much.
Yeah. And obviously he's talked about wanting to host a Super Bowl, and I don't think there'll ever be a Super Bowl in a cold weather city again without a dome. It's something that's, even if they broke ground tomorrow, it'd be years away. I would hate to see it. I just love outdoor football. I love the conditions. I don't love standing out there doing TV hit when it's 12 degrees and that giant speaker is right next to you and you're freezing. But I do like outdoor football, and I think it's real football. I never did like domes. I mean, some domes are nice and some aren't nice, but if it was up to me, I just love outdoor football.
Okay.
So I hope it never happens.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you got to figure out the not risk reward, but like, what are the advantages and disadvantages of it? Are the advantages worth it?
Well, you can host events year round, motorcycle rallies and tractor pulls and concerts. Can do that stuff throughout the year.
Yeah.
Which you can't do now.
Howie, this is always a good time to talk to Howie because stuff has actually happened. It's not saying it's not valuable to talk to him at the combine. It is. And I think this year he did a really good job of explaining to people that, hey, this is going to be a different kind of an off season. Yeah. Get ready for it. So I think he did himself some favors at the combine, but now we can actually talk about what has happened, re-signing Zach Bond and letting all these players walk. The CJ Gardner-Johnson trade certainly will be a big topic with him.
Yeah, that might be topic number one, beyond just the volume of change on defense. I think is, in general terms, that obviously that's part of it. That was the most surprising to me, certainly the most unexpected move. So I think that'll be in the top of my list of questions for Howie.
Yeah. And then Nick, there's stuff. We talked to him at the combine. Not a ton has changed. They hired Scott Loeffler since then as the quarterback's coach, another quarterback's coach for Jalen. So I think that's a good topic. And, his contract, he's not going to want to talk about it, but, where is he?
Yeah. No, he won't want to talk about it.
Guess what? He's got to sit there for a half hour or so.
Yeah.
My favorite owners meeting story ever was in the 2016 owners meetings. And we've told this before, but I'll tell it every time I get the chance. It was when they just hired Doug. And that's when the breakfasts were an hour long. It's been cut to a half hour since then. But the Doug Peterson table ended up being pretty empty because most of us who were there at, I think that was Boca Raton that year, were over at Chip Kelly's table with the 49ers because he had never really addressed anything after he got fired here. Then he gets hired by the 49ers. And even in that introductory press conference, he didn't talk about the Eagles. He never spoke about anything that happened or anything that went down. And he had said that he wasn't going to talk about the Eagles at the owners meetings, but We had an hour. And
you guys broke them down.
It was very funny because I think Mayoko was there from NBC Sports Bay Area and a couple other 49ers reporters, and we let them start it off and get some questions in. And then it was just rapid fire for like 45 minutes. And he started talking about everything and his relationship with Howie, and he didn't do this, he didn't do that. It was pretty unbelievable.
What a chapter in Eagles history.
Yeah.
I mean, from the time Chip became GM to the day he got fired is one of the most fascinating just developments that this franchise has ever had. I mean, has any team ever demoted a GM for another guy and then reinstated him a year later? I mean, that doesn't happen. It's crazy. It was fun when that was all happening.
Pretty wild.
That day, that press conference when Howie got reinstated, that whole day, and there was stuff going on all over the building. That was a really wild day.
Actually, today I was thinking about when the Eagles fired Chip Kelly because the Flyers obviously fired Tortorella.
Yeah. And I think there's some similarities between the two of them as far as rubbing people the wrong way. They seem to,
different grading personalities, but
yeah.
But I remember the Eagles fired Chip Kelly and they announced it in an email.
Yes.
Might be the last time they announced anything in an email.
Yes. Yeah. And I was driving on Bristol Road in Northeast Philly. I was on my way home and I pulled into a storage facility to read the full email. I saw the headline and just turned around headed back here.
I was at my parents' house having dinner with them because it was around like 6 p.m. I remember looking at my phone and going, well, my night just changed quite a bit.
Well, I'd said on gosh, I guess it was Quick Slants at the time. I'd said I wouldn't be shocked if Jeff because things were really bad.
It was getting bad.
It was really bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens like imminently.
Mm-hmm.
And it did.
The other thing at owners meetings, all the rule changes, the full proposals are out there. That Packers one to change the tush push has made it this far. We'll see if it gets tabled at some point, but it's up for a vote.
And when would that be? Probably Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah. It's not going to pass. I shouldn't say. I'd be pretty surprised if it passed.
I get 3/4 vote.
Yeah, so you need 24-32. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it has that level of support because there's not really any like basis for it.
Right.
Like
other than jealousy.
Yeah.
The Eagles are really good at this. We don't want them to be good at it. Is that enough for 24 owners? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I was on a call with Troy Vincent and Rich McKay and like the whole competition committee yesterday, and hearing them, they're asking a couple of questions about the tush push. Very brief answers. I don't think it has the support of the competition committee. It doesn't seem like it because Troy Vincent already came out and said there were no injuries on the play last year. And one of the things they're citing is player safety. All right, that doesn't make sense. And then the other thing they're citing is pace of play. Again, unless Frankie Louvu's hopping across the line 10 times, it doesn't affect the pace of play. So, I don't think it has the support it needs. A few others real quick. We talked about them, but the Eagles proposed to carry over playoff overtime to regular season overtime. The competition committee wants to make the dynamic kickoff permanent. They did it on a trial basis last year. The one tweak would be the touchback would go from the 30 to 35.
I like that.
Yeah. So basically, their thought is that it'll encourage more kickoffs to be in the landing zone and not into the end zone.
Right.
The other thing to think about, though, is like teams are going to be less incentivized to take the ball out of the end zone.
Possibly.
When it goes there.
Yeah.
So I wonder but they think it's going to encourage more. And kickoffs were up in 2024. So I think that's a good thing. You didn't want to lose the play. Onside kicks can be at any point in the game if the team's trailing instead of just the fourth quarter.
Oh, okay.
That's a proposal. That's from the competition committee.
Well, you still have to designate it.
Yeah, well, you have to. Yeah, because otherwise you line up different.
Right.
The Lions' defensive holding and illegal contact would no longer be automatic first downs. And then the Lions did the bylaw proposal to change the seeding of the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen, but it was interesting hearing Troy Vincent and Rich McKay talk about it, saying like, well, there has been some support before. And Troy brought up the the COVID season. It is funny, by the way, Troy Vincent's like second in command. It's amazing every time I see him talking about stuff like this. But you mentioned in the COVID year,
Pennsbury High School,
there was a plan in place that if there was inequity among how many games got played, it would change in that year. So they've toyed with the idea in certain scenarios.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. We don't have much time left because we've been jabbering here for a while.
Take a couple questions?
Yeah, let's take a couple. eagle@nbcuni.com, QR codes on the screen. I promise we're going to catch up with a lot of these.
We're going to have a pod in the not too distant future where we just answer questions. Let's do that.
Yeah, I like that because, we're getting backed up a little bit. And we apologize for that. First one is from Jeremy. Hey guys, love the pod and never miss an episode as I serve our country in the Army, currently stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Thank you for your service.
My question is, with Howie seeming to stack a bunch of picks in the next 2 years, do you think it's more of a win with enough picks, some of them are bound to be good, or do you think he's stockpiling them for a big trade up? Keep that thought process in mind. Do you see them trading out of the 32 pick if the person they want isn't there? And what would that compensation look like to add to what Howie already has?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think for Howie, adding picks equals flexibility. Mm-hmm. It just gives him options to do. And when that moment comes, he can do whatever he needs to do. He has the chips to do it. So I don't think he's going into it with any preconceived notion, but can take players. You can make trades. It just gives him those options.
I did look up the trade from 2018.
Okay.
Just so we have some sort of basis here. The Eagles traded number 32 and a 4th round pick, which was 132, for Baltimore's 2, which was 52nd, and their 4th, which was 125. So a slight trade up in the 4th round. But the big chip was a 2nd round pick in 2019, the following season.
Yeah. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. And then the Eagles traded up from 52 to 49 to draft Dallas Goedert.
Right.
Next one is from Michael. Hey, Dave and Rube, love the show. You two do a great job keeping Eagles fans connected and informed. I'm a huge Jalen Carter fan and couldn't be happier that he's set to be an Eagle for years to come. Just a quick question. With hindsight being 2020, how would you reorder the top 10 picks of the 2023 draft based on what we know now? Which teams ahead of the Eagles do you think most regret passing on Carter, and how high do you believe he should have gone in retrospect? Thanks for everything you do.
That's an interesting question. So it was Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, Anthony Richardson, Devin Witherspoon, Paris Johnson Jr., Tyree Wilson, Bijan Robinson, and then Jalen Carter.
For starters, Chicago definitely wouldn't have traded out of 9 with Carter being there.
Yeah.
So the Eagles were wise to move up and get him.
I mean, how many of those players would you rather have than Jalen Carter?
Not many. I think Carolina probably takes CJ Stroud, but I think they probably stick with a quarterback there.
Yeah.
And Houston, the quarterbacks make it tricky because if you need a quarterback, you need a quarterback. And Houston probably takes a quarterback. But could you imagine Will Anderson and Jalen Carter on the same line?
Imagine that. But I mean, he's
like the Seahawks, even though I think they really like Devin Witherspoon, he's been a good player. I think they would have taken Jalen Carter over him. I think the Cardinals would have taken him over Paris Johnson.
Yeah.
The Raiders would have taken him over Tyree Wilson. He's a really good player.
Bijan Robinson.
No, Atlanta's got to take skill players in the first round.
I mean, the Colts, Anthony Richardson. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the quarterback part of it.
They have Daniel Jones.
The quarterback part of it makes it weird. I get what you're saying.
You can still play that game.
Sure.
I mean, the only slam, I mean, he'd be a top 3 pick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on talent, we knew he was. So,
yeah.
I think that's part of the hindsight too, that he hasn't caused major trouble since he's been in Philly.
Kudos to the Eagles.
But you also don't know what it would be like if he was somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's hard to say. And that was the questions that those teams were asking themselves in the moment there.
The value of having a Fletcher Cox in the same room. And what a player.
Yeah. All right. Let's just
good question though.
Yeah, it's always fun to look back at those drafts, and we're probably not even far enough removed from it to really do that properly. But
Right.
a couple years in, it's looking like he's one of the best players, if not the best player from that draft. And you have other guys who might have gone earlier too, like Christian Gonzalez went 17th. That didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, always fun to do that. I mean, Nolen would have certainly gone higher after his last year.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd probably be a top 20 pick.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
All right, do you have a question for us? It's eagle-eye at NBC Uni. That's NBCUNI.com. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, any final words?
I almost messaged you yesterday, say, I think I'm going to do, we're in the studio. Obviously, if you can hear Ricky, I mean, I think you might be able to hear Ricky at home, but I was going to say, I think we should do the podcast at home, at our respective homes. We don't live together because the Phillies have their opener at 3:00. The traffic's going to be really bad. And I realized they opened in Washington. So I didn't message you that.
That's good.
But it took me a while to realize that. So yeah, enjoy. I'm stoked. I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. And yeah, stoked for, I got the MLB package, extra innings every year. Just watch baseball.
Yeah, I'm excited for the baseball season, certainly. Excited for the rest of the NFL offseason as well. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.